Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm your host Sayyid Anwarul Hassan and you're watching a new edition of program Tou Yeh Hai. Viewers, today we are honored to have a special guest, Her Excellency Miss Maria Fernando Espinosa, the President of UN General Assembly, who is visiting Pakistan these days. Her Excellency, we welcome you on behalf of State Broadcaster Pakistan Television News.
Thank you very much, Anwar. It's a privilege to be here with you today.
Thanks, ma'am. Viewers, our distinguished guest has a great profile. Miss Maria was elected as UN General Assembly President on 5th June 2018. She is the fourth and first woman from her region, Latin America, to head this world organization. Her Excellency has twice served as Foreign Minister of Ecuador, Minister of National Defense, and Coordinating Minister of Culture and National Heritage. In a nutshell, we can say she's a top diplomat, politician, academician, and a poet, and has over 20 years of experience in international negotiations, security, human rights, defense, sustainable development, gender equality, and climate change. Madam President, first of all, tell us about your visit to Pakistan, how it is going so far.
Well, it is going excellent, I would say. I had the privilege to meet the leadership of this country, the President, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Human Rights. I would say a very fruitful visit, and I was able to see firsthand the progress made by this country in sustainable development, in the fight against climate change, the enormous progress and challenges that remain on the field of human rights. So I think I would say that it was a very successful visit, and I was really treated so well, you know, with great warmth and hospitality. So I am very pleased.
So you had a packed schedule. You had formal interactions, as you mentioned, with President, Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, and you had informal interactions as well. If I may ask, what has been the takeaway of those formal and informal interactions?
I can say that this is a very interesting country, very wealthy in terms of the human capital, of the very vibrant civil society, of the commitments of this new government to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, to fight poverty and inequality, to be part of the international community, and to strengthen the linkages and the coordination and the joint work with the United Nations. Pakistan is also a great supporter of multilateralism, which is something that I praise, of course.
And you like the rainy weather of Islamabad.
Yes, we had one full day of rain, but I think that the warmth of the Pakistani people makes it for it.
Yeah. Before we delve upon your vision and priorities, may I ask that how does it feel as a woman to head a world organization, first time from your region, Ecuador, Latin America, and Caribbean? How does it feel, ma'am?
Well, it is a great responsibility. It is an honor. And I think that there is a lot of expectations when a woman, you know, reaches a position, because we deserve, because we have fought for it. People expect you to solve all the world's problems, you know, to reach, peace and security for all, to resolve, the development challenges that we face, the human rights difficult situations around the world. So you are requested to deliver more and better because you are a woman. And I'm fully committed, but I'm also fully committed to bring at the core of the work of the UN and of the General Assembly, which is our parliament, the parliament of humanity, women's empowerment and the rights of women at the core of everything we do. If we want sustainable development, if we want peace and security, we cannot leave half of the population behind.
Yeah, and you also mentioned all these things in your inaugural address last year, and I was going through it, and I quote that you said, "I'm determined to fight against all forms of discrimination, especially gender discrimination. Secondly, you urge the member state to develop a shared sense of common purpose needed to find solutions to political differences, and lastly, to make UN relevant to all people." how successful you have been in realizing your vision, which you narrated in your inaugural address.
I chose a theme for this year's presidency, which is to make the United Nations relevant for all. And I think relevance is extremely important, especially nowadays. We need to prove public opinion. We need to prove people out there, the people we serve, that we are fit for purpose, that we are able to deliver, that we have a response capacity, that we are less bureaucratic and more efficient, that the General Assembly is indeed the norm-setting body for international law. That's the work we do, and that the organization is really ready and eager to be to have its working methods improved, to be really fit for the 21st century challenges that we all face. And I'm working, hard with that, hand in hand with member states. I do represent 193 member states, but also to make the General Assembly deliver more and better. And I repeat this, I think that we have an implementation deficit.
Okay.
We every year we come up with 200, 300 new resolutions on everything. On each one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, on international peace and security challenges, on human rights. And yet, I think we do very little to examine and see and assess if we are really delivering on the resolutions that we collectively craft and agree upon.
And it's very important, as you have mentioned, that implementation deficit. So how, under your leadership, this deficit issue can be resolved?
I think it requires political will from our leaders, from the leadership of the countries. It requires that there is ownership of the things that we decide. Ownership not only by politicians, but ownership of the people, ownership of society. That, for example, when you talk about climate change, and this country has done so much, to fight climate change, people are aware and they know what are the things that they should do, how they should contribute to fight climate change. For example, I was really very impressed by the 1 billion trees target of Pakistan. Well, it started with 1 billion.
And it's just for 5 years.
The target was really achieved, even before than expected, and now the target is 10 billion trees in 5 years' time. This would be a revolution, but also a great contribution to climate change, but to improving the soil quality of Pakistan, to involve local communities in the caring for the forest. Well, it's really a very promising and successful program. This projects should be multiplied around the world. And again, we need political will, we need commitment and determination, and we need ownership from societies to do things better, to change the way we address and deal with issues. But for that, we need more cooperation, we need more multilateralism and not less. We need more UN and not less.
And you mentioned political determination, political ownership, and getting away with this implementation deficit. So, ma'am, there is another very big and core issue, Kashmir. It has been on the UN agenda since 1948, and the right of self-determination was promised to them. But this promise has not been fulfilled yet, mainly because of the intransigent attitude of India. How do you see UN can play a more proactive role, a decisive role in implementing its resolutions? Because then if they are not implemented, then they lose their worth.
I think it's very important in any difficult situation that parties that are involved establish mechanisms of dialogue. There is no other way than peaceful means to solve any conflict situation, and I think this is the case. So the United Nations and the General Assembly, we advocate for dialogue, for cooperation, for also, you know, preventing any conflict. We are very much in favor of the sustaining peace principle, which is preventive diplomacy, which is preventing conflicts rather than, you know, then having to face difficult situations that are always, you know, harm innocent people,
yeah, you have
innocent
talked about,
civilians.
yeah, innocent civilians.
And we are our very reason to exist
yes.
is because of that. The organization was created after the Second World War, not to repeat the horrors of the Second World
yeah.
War. And I think that we have this collective commitment.
Because Kashmir is bleeding, the UN Human Rights Report confirms it. It was published in July 2018. There, as you have said, indiscriminate use of pellet gun shots on civilians, especially youth, rape being used as a weapon against women, forced disappearances. So how would you become a voice of those people, vulnerable people, and their voices are heard in a way that they get some relief and the aggressor is restrained? Because it has become a human issue as well.
Again, I repeat, the role of the United Nations is encourage dialogue and peaceful solutions for any conflict. And I think that the issue of human dignity and human rights should be respected and guaranteed in every corner of planet Earth.
UN Secretary General here, I was reading his remarks. He was saying that UN is prepared to play a meaningful role for having a dialogue between India and Pakistan, because this region is badly affected. All the issues of poverty elevation, underdevelopment, climate change, as you have mentioned, they get on the back burner because this is a big irritant. You agree with it?
I think that the Charter has 3 pillars. The pillar of peace and security, of development and human rights. I think the 3 pillars should go hand in hand. We should have a holistic approach to human dignity and human development. We have a very useful framework, a survival kit that is called the Sustainable Development Goals, the 2030 Agenda. And I think that for this to happen, of course, societies should really be committed to that. It's desirable, as the Secretary General has very well stated, that parties that are involved in a conflict, they sit and they get together and they have meaningful and constructive dialogue.
Yeah, and last question, Kashmir, and UN has a role as well, because I was going, Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, they have suggested constitution of inquiry commission to investigate and ascertain the level of atrocities being, being done in the occupied territory. So, do you agree, Madam President, that there should be some follow-up as the UN High Commission for Human Rights has suggested?
Well, commissions of inquiry are established by the Security Council and not by the General Assembly.
Okay, but is there any connect between UN General Assembly and UN Security Council?
Well, we do have a means of coordination, of communication, of course. Both the General Assembly and the Security Council and the Social and Economic Council, we are main bodies of the organization, and we are asked and requested to work together in coordination and in a coherent manner, of course.
Okay. So we expect that this connect will, it will help in bringing both the countries on a negotiation table, and especially the women and the children, because I'm more concerned about those women and children. Coming to the revitalization of UN General Assembly, in the past you also headed a working group which worked on its revitalization. Now you're on a high pedestal. Tell us about what's revitalizing process of UN General Assembly is at the moment. It's heading towards some conclusive results.
Well, I think that one of my 7 priorities for the presidency this year is revitalizing the United Nations. And this priority of revitalizing the United Nations has 3 components. One is the very challenging implementation of the reform process that the organization is undergoing in its peace and security architecture, in its a new structure for the development system, to be more efficient and more connected to the ground and with a direct reporting line to the Secretary General, and also a management reform. So basically, we are going to follow up and make sure that we implement this reform. The second pillar is the progress on the Security Council reform process. And the third pillar is to improve the working methods of the General Assembly. I already mentioned that. So indeed, there is a working group, there is a process that is ongoing to make sure that we mainstream the work of the General Assembly, that we are more efficient, that we use better the resources we have. And by that I mean the human resources, the financial resources, but that we are also more efficient in the way we do. We avoid overlappings of our work, improve the work of the different commissions, the committees, and that we are really able to deliver more and better, as mentioned, no? And we are in the process, of course, of doing that.
Okay, and as you have mentioned, reforms in Security Council, this process is also going on for the last 25 years. What's your take, Madam President, on that? Pakistan believes that it should be, Security Council should be more democratic, and the members' track record must be taken into account when expanding it. Besides, the decision should be made on consensus. How does you see that process?
Well, it's a very difficult process. I mean, we cannot be naive. The process has been going on for 25 years, and a negotiation, an intergovernmental negotiation, is been going on for 10 years. There is a mandate for the General Assembly to continue with the process. It's very much a member state-driven process. My role is to facilitate, to lead, to accompany member states, and make sure that all the consultations and negotiations are transparent, are inclusive, and they lead us somewhere. That lead us somewhere will depend on the speed and the depth that member states are ready to put into it.
Are you satisfied with the pace of reforms?
Well,
25 years is a big time.
Some member states are disappointed, are frustrated. Other member states, they feel like it is such a difficult, complex matter that it requires time. So there are different readings about the process.
And about its importance, because as you have mentioned earlier, that this world organization was made in the aftermath of Second World War. And it was made to serve all, not to few, powerful and selected few. So in order to, in order to change it according to the new world realities, what do you say that its overhauling process should focuses on which area, so that all the member states believe that it is serving their purpose?
Well, the General Assembly is the most representative and democratic body of the system. We are the parliament of humanity in a way. General Assembly has 193 member states, and we have really contributed to build a better world. If we recall the Millennium Development Goals, and we were able to really fight poverty, reduce extreme poverty by 2015. We have this new umbrella or survival kit, which are the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. It's also a contribution of the General Assembly. If we look recently, the Global Compact on Migration, the Global Compact on Refugees, the climate agreements that we all know that we need to do more. We need to raise the ambition of our mitigation targets. We need to really come to grips to financing climate adaptation and mitigation, especially for developing countries. But we are working hard and delivering, and I think we need to perhaps do a better work communicating to the people we serve the work that the UN does.
Many critics say that it is merely, UN General Assembly is merely a debating club. Nothing concrete comes out of it. How do you respond to this criticism?
It is a normative body. It is not only a talk shop, but I don't see it as such. the General Assembly is a normative body, is a policy-setting body. It takes very important decisions. We see, for example, the value of the Sustainable Development Goals. We see the value of the normative effort that we do. I mean, international law is shaped by the work of the General Assembly. So I think that it is a very important body. It is a space for policy advice, for recommendations, for exchange of good practices, for collective commitment to address global challenges. It is the space, for example, to address global challenges as important as not only climate change, but issues such as countering terrorism, issues of migration or international migration. These global challenges require global responses. And the United Nations, the General Assembly, is the space for that to happen.
You have mentioned international migration. I was going through the stats. Huge number of people have been displaced, 65.6 million, and they leave their homes because of conflict and persecution. Syrian Muslims and Rohingya Muslims are a case in point, and because of that displacement, their basic rights are adversely affected, like the right of education, childcare, freedom of movement. So would you like to shed some light at how UN is playing its due role in helping these vulnerable groups?
There are millions of people on the move, millions of people that are migrating for different reasons. Either it be for climate change reasons, because of conflict, because of looking for better economic opportunities, for jobs, different reasons. What the UN and the General Assembly has done is to establish the Global Compact on Migration. This is a framework, a reference point to encourage and boost cooperation among countries, to encourage burden-sharing mechanisms, to establish better cooperation between countries of origin, countries of transit, and countries of destination. The Global Compact on Migration establishes 23 policy recommendations for countries to take them and see what is useful to them and how to make the best use of this tool. The Global Compact on Migration is a tool. It's a menu of recommendations, but basically it was crafted to encourage cooperation and burden sharing between countries of origin, transit, and destination, just precisely to address the issues that you were mentioning.
Yeah, and you wholeheartedly praise Pakistan for its generosity, because we are, housing Afghan refugees since 1979. Still 2.7 million Afghan refugees live in Pakistan, and you are in a better position to judge, because Ecuador, I was reading, you had influx of Colombian refugees. So as you have rightly mentioned that those countries which are hosting these refugees, they should be acknowledged, and there must be some contributions, because it burdens your financial exchequer.
Absolutely. 80% of the refugees around the world are hosted by developing countries. 80% of them. And here we're speaking about 68 million people around the world. And you know very well, because Pakistan has had the generosity to host 2.7 million refugees. It is, a heavy burden on a country's economy, on the provision of services such as education, shelter, health services. It is a weight. And we have agreed, the General Assembly has adopted the Global Compact on Refugees, precisely, again, to encourage better cooperation, to really establish burden-sharing mechanisms, but also to look at the root causes and have a preventive approach. I think that the best way to prevent people to leave their home countries, it's peace and security, is sustainable development. When people do not feel threatened, they feel safe, they feel they have a future, they feel they have opportunities, that it is obvious that they are not going to leave their home countries.
Yes.
I think it is, humans and families, they don't leave their homes, their countries, just because they want to. They want an adventure.
Yeah.
It's because they are forced to do it.
They have no other option.
So I think that the preventive approach is perhaps the most important.
When we have always talked about multilateralism, you're talking about cooperation, about political ownership. But in the present world, we are seeing the world powers are moving towards isolationism. So how to balance it? Because U.S. President Trump, he speaks about, about U.S. interest. He says USA comes first. So I just want to know, taking advantage of your presence here, that you are a staunch believer in multilateralism, and you are, passionately advocating that countries must take ownership. On the other hand, we are seeing the powerful nations. The Brexit example is also before you. They are moving towards isolationism. So how does we have to maintain this balance? Your take?
I think we should be careful about, false contradictions. Sometimes it is, the media and some opinion makers, they basically put the issues is on an either or.
Okay.
Is either you respond to the national interest, or you are part of the international community and you work together in a collaborative way to address the global challenges. So it's either you care for your people, or you support multilateral responses. There is no either or.
Okay.
You can care for your people.
Okay.
You can really privilege the national interest when at the same time you're part of the international community, because you think that and you believe that global challenges require global responses, require more cooperation, and require multilateral institutions.
Yeah.
When you deal with international migration, when you deal with terrorism, with climate change, these are issues that require international multilateral responses. So you can have both.
And that
both can coexist.
That response is forthcoming and is coming?
Yes, of course. I mean, there are efforts that are being made, and we can always improve and do things better.
Okay.
That's my purpose as President of the General Assembly, to do things better, to improve the way we deliver. And this is not done by magic, but it is done by the member states. It is done by societies as a whole. And that's the effort that we are making. And the best way is to translate the work of the United Nations into real life, to touch the lives of the people we serve.
Yeah.
You see here a very strong team, UN country team in Pakistan, really supporting this Pakistan vision for 2025, bringing the agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals, supporting the efforts that the government is doing to fight poverty. Excellent initiatives that I had the privilege to visit, the BISP program,
Okay.
for example, that is very, very ambitious, that really is looking at the empowerment of women and looking at alternatives to lift up of poverty so many women in Pakistan, efforts to bring girls into formal education, for example, all the efforts that Pakistan is doing, and the UN is really was shaped to support countries in delivering their own commitments and their own national development plans.
You also appreciated Pakistan UN peacekeeping efforts in all these Blue Helmet missions. Our performance has been praised by UN leadership and several leaders of the world. But now I think the UN focus is more on conflict prevention than peacekeeping. Am I right?
I think that they should go together.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we still live so many conflict situations around the world that require peacekeeping operations. Pakistan is one of the most important troop contributing countries, and Pakistan needs to be praised for that. I had the privilege to visit the Center for Peace and Security,
okay.
where so many peacekeepers are trained and from different parts of the world. It's a very important service that Pakistan is providing to peacekeeping operations, not only by training but also by contributing troops that are now in the Democratic Republic of Congo and so many, and Libya and so many other places around the world. So it is true that the main focus is on sustaining peace, on the preventive approach, but we have to keep our peacekeeping operations where they're needed, because unfortunately we are still, having so many conflicts around the world.
Yeah. About Afghan conflict, because I was reading your statement, you also appreciated Pakistani efforts in facilitating intra-Afghan dialogue, and this conflict has also, badly affected this whole region. We are, development-wise, we are very, far behind because of this ongoing civil war. What's your take on Afghan peace process? How can we achieve endurable peace in Afghanistan? And has there been any meaningful debate in your General Assembly about Afghanistan?
I think that there has been positive developments in the peace process in Afghanistan, and I think that it is very important that all the parties involved they really push, for meaningful progress. I think the role of Pakistan in the Afghani peace process is extremely important. I know that there are developments, that there are conversations, and I really hope that these conversations, the commitment of Pakistan to support the Afghani peace process really brings, allows us to harvest better times for the Afghani people. The peace in Afghanistan is the peace for the region, and I think it benefits the entire world.
And there is another important issue. I also want your opinion on it. That there's an unfortunate trend of Islamophobia, and it's getting widespread. And Muslims are bearing the brunt in their daily lives. Secondly, under the garb of freedom of expression, blasphemous material gets somewhat printed, and it's not only hurtful, but seems a deliberate effort to incite Muslims. I just want to ask you how and what sort of remedial measures be taken so that there should be freedom of expression, but it should not cross red lines and hurt a bigger community, their religious feelings.
I think that there should be zero tolerance for any form of discrimination, for any form of hate speech. Freedom of religion also is extremely important. And I think that responsible media, even the social media, should be also taken into account. Freedom of expression, yes, but there are boundaries, and there is responsibility as well. I think that we should really work very hard in quality education, education on values, for tolerance, for respect, diversity, all forms of diversity, and again, zero tolerance for hate speech, for any form of discrimination, for xenophobia, any form of discrimination, including religious discrimination. I think that our world should be, can only be a peaceful world if we respect each other, and if we live with harmony, if we respect our differences, if we base our relationships in tolerance, in cooperation. And these are fundamental values that we need to bring into our education system. I was very happy today when I met the Minister of Human Rights, that she mentioned that the Prime Minister is very committed to include in the curriculum in schools human rights. And I think that human rights, of course, are all about human dignity and respect.
There should be some debate in UN General Assembly about this new trend.
We have had several discussions. There are several resolutions on that. And I think that it goes beyond debate. It touches on the very way societies build their value systems, their value systems, their own cultures, and I think that there is a long way to go. There is a long way to go, and we are unfortunately seeing, racist speech, re-emerging, and we should really be very strong and to have a zero tolerance attitude and zero tolerance policies in our countries for
and
that.
Obviously, there are many important matters, but if I ask you, if you choose one that people will remember about you, what do you think will be the hallmark of your presidency?
The importance of multilateralism and the relevance of the United Nations to touch and transform for the good the lives of people, of regular people, of the normal citizen.
And you also said that DARE, D-A-R-E, acronym for I was going through delivery, accountability, efficiency. So if on this premise, if I ask you, how do you rate your performance on scale from 1 to 5, have you been able to implement that DARE, D-A-R-E acronym which you said in one of your speeches? You have been able to implement all those things?
What I can say is that every day I do the best I can, and I'm not alone. I have, a team that is a dream team, working flat out every day from Monday to Sunday to serve the organization and to serve the people that we represent. So I think it's up to the member states and to the people to judge. But I can say that we are doing the best we can.
And what's your focus on, because there are many things and you want to do, and delivery, accountability, relevance and efficiency. But what is your priority among these 4?
Well, I think that they go hand in hand. It's very difficult to say that you want to deliver without efficiency. Doesn't make sense. That you want to be relevant, but you don't want to be accountable. So I think that these 4 letters of the acronym DARE, they go hand in hand and they are interdependent.
Okay. Towards the end, you are in Pakistan. You met with civil society as well. Your perspective of Pakistan, and what would be your memories about our country?
Well, I would say that I am very pleased because I see a very promising future for this country. I see a lot of commitment. I see passion to transform the country. I see the true willingness to combat poverty, to live in a peaceful society, and that is very, very encouraging. So what I would bring with me is the warmth and the generosity and the hospitality of the Pakistani people.
Your perception about Pakistan changed when you were coming to Pakistan. What was in your mind, and now when you will be, inshallah, leaving back to UN?
To tell you the truth, this is my first visit to Pakistan, and I've always wanted to come here.
Okay.
So I am not disappointed.
Okay.
I am very happy that I came and that I was able to touch with my own hands and see with my own eyes how beautiful this country is.
Madam President, you are a multitasker. I will just mention in my introduction that you have been a top politician, you're a top diplomat, academician, and a poet. So tell us about yourself, that how do you manage all these things?
Well, these things just happen. They're part of life, and they require hard work and lots of passion and commitment.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with Pakistan Television News. We wish you a safe journey back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Viewers, that was all we have tonight. Please give your feedback on our Facebook and Twitter account. We'll meet inshallah tomorrow night at 8:05 p.m. Till then, it's Allah Hafiz from Sayyid Marul Hassan and Pram Sashtre team.